Have you ever heard of a king killed by his own royal guards? It sounds like something out of a TV show, but it really happened. Let's talk about the tragic story of Osman II, the first Ottoman sultan to be assassinated by his own army. Osman II came to the throne in 1618 when he was just 14 years old. Unlike many of his predecessors who were confined to the palace, Osman was well educated and had a strong grasp of what was happening in his empire. He was ambitious, energetic, and he saw a big problem right at the heart of his power: the Janissaries. Who were the Janissaries? They were the elite infantry troops of the Ottoman army, basically the Sultan's personal guard. For centuries they were a formidable fighting force, feared by their enemies. But by Osman's time things had changed. The Janissaries had become too powerful, meddling in politics, demanding more pay, and refusing to follow orders. Their discipline was gone, and they were more of a threat to the state than a protector of it. They weren't the lean, mean fighting machine they used to be. Instead, they were more interested in their business ventures and political influence in Istanbul. Osman saw this decay firsthand. In 1621, he led the army in a campaign against Poland. The siege of Katyn was a grueling, difficult battle. The Ottomans eventually secured a sort of victory, but it came at a huge cost. During the siege, Osman was disgusted by the Janissaries' performance. He saw their lack of discipline, their cowardice, and their constant complaints. He realized they were a liability. This experience solidified his determination. The Janissary corps had to be reformed, or even better, replaced entirely. This was a radical idea. The Janissaries were a centuries-old institution, deeply woven into the fabric of the Ottoman state. Trying to dismantle them was like trying to tear down a pillar holding up the entire palace. But Osman was young and determined. He started making plans in secret. His idea was to create a new, loyal army recruited from the Anatolian, Syrian, and Egyptian heartlands. This new force would be made up of Turkish and other loyal Muslim subjects, directly accountable to him, and would completely bypass the corrupt Janissaries. But secrets in a palace as full of spies as the Topkapi are hard to keep. Word of Osman's plan began to leak out. He announced his intention to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca, but this was widely seen as a cover story. The real reason, the Janissaries suspected, was to go to Anatolia and Egypt to recruit his new army. They saw this as a direct threat to their very existence. Their power, their privileges, their wealth, it was all on the line. The Janissaries weren't just going to sit back and let their world be dismantled. They decided to act. In May 1622, they rose up in a massive rebellion. They stormed the palace grounds, demanding the execution of the Grand Vizier and other officials they blamed for the Sultan's radical plans. The young Osman found himself trapped, abandoned by many of his officials who were too scared to stand against the mob. Initially, he tried to negotiate, but the situation spiraled out of control. The rebels were not just angry. They were terrified of what Osman represented. They dragged him from his throne and put his mentally unstable uncle, Mustafa I, back in power. But that wasn't enough. They subjected Osman to public humiliation, parading him through the streets of Istanbul on a workhorse. Then they took him to the infamous Yedikule fortress, a grim prison. There, in a small dark cell, the 17-year-old Sultan was brutally strangled to death. The assassination of Osman II was a seismic event. It was the first time in the history of the Ottoman Empire that a sultan had been overthrown and killed by his own subjects, by his own army. It shattered the sacred, untouchable image of the sultan and sent a chilling message. Even the supreme ruler was not safe from the wrath of the Janissaries. This act of regicide marked a turning point, ushering in a period of instability and demonstrating just how powerful and dangerous the Janissaries had become. It would take many more years and much more bloodshed before their power was finally broken. Osman's story is a classic tale of a reformer who moved too fast, too soon. He had the right idea but underestimated the sheer power and ruthlessness of the establishment he tried to change. He was a bright, ambitious young ruler whose reign was tragically cut short, a stark reminder that in the high-stakes Game of Thrones, even the king can be a pawn. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into history's most dramatic moments. See you next time.